HR Pufnstuf. Can't do a little 'cause you can't do enough.
Texas has played unbelievable part in my entire career. And if you don't know who the hell I am, I created HR Pufnstuf. And if you don't remember that, then the Bugaloos, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Lidsville, Land of the Lost, you'll know that one. 26 shows we had on all three networks. We did Donnie Marie, the Brady Bunch Hour, Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters, Pink Lady and Jeff, Raquel Welch. You know, we did her live show in Vegas, and then it was a CBS special. And all these stars. I'm a puppeteer, and that's how it all started. I saw my first puppet show. I was 10 years old in a vaudeville theater in Providence, Rhode Island, and I fell in love with puppetry. I said, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. In the back of the comic book, there was an ad for a marionette, $3.95. I went to my dad. I said, can I get that marionette? And he said, that would feed your family for weeks. And you're a boy, and you want a dolly? I'll never forget him calling it a dolly. And after school, I'm 10 years old, I went out on the street and in July and sold Christmas cards to save my $3.95. It probably took me from July to Christmas. And I sent away for my first marionette. I still have her. She's 83 years old. Her name is Dolly. That's the beginning of my career. I became a street performer. With my dolly, I was self-taught. I knew nothing about being a puppeteer. And I went out into the street after school. They didn't know it. I'm doing my puppet, and now there's 50 to 100 people out in the street watching me. And I'm selling maybe 50 cents a day. Sometimes on a weekend, I'd make as much as 75 cents. And my dad caught on, and from that day on, I supported the family. 1946 is the first time I came to Dallas. And then we played many other cities in Texas with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. But I didn't perform in the Big Top. It was in the sideshow. It was the freak show. And after we played Dallas, of course, Houston and El Paso, and I was 15 years old, and I was the world's youngest puppeteer. Then I came back in 1957 because the State Fair here, you have that 6,000 seat theater. And I performed there for, I don't know, I guess it was 2 weeks or maybe 2.5 weeks. And guess who the star of the show was? And I was her opening act, Judy Garland. There are thousands and thousands of acts out there, but to choose a puppet act as her opening? We opened in Vegas and at the Flamingo Hotel, and we played the Greek Theater for a whole solid week in Los Angeles. And then I came back in 1958, Liberace, at the Adolphus Hotel. I was on tour with him, and we toured the whole world for a year and a half. Dallas played such an important part in my life. Not only Judy Garland, not only Liberace, but in 1964, Angus Wynne, he was the original builder of your incredible park, Six Flags. And he approached us to do a show, and Coca-Cola would sponsor it. Teenagers are not going to go see a puppet show. You know, they're more interested in those 90 rides that are out there. They built a theater, and we did a 25-minute spectacle with puppets. My shows became #1 in all the Six Flags parks because all of our shows were like a huge trip, just like our television shows.
But what kind of trip is this, man? What kind of trip is this, man? This is a space trip!
We had what we called the show business factory, where we built all the puppets, all the scenery, you know, for the puppet shows, because we ended up being in every single Six Flags park. Angus Wynne made us the creative heads of all the Six Flags parks for almost 9 years. I'm doing a show in Texas, the San Antonio Hemisphere, 9 shows a day. That was a 25-minute show. It was called Kaleidoscope. And that show is where Pufnstuf was born. We called him Luther. He was a dragon. He had a cowboy hat. He had cowboy boots because it was in Texas. And Jim Nabors did the voice. Our first television show was the Banana Splits. And the opening of the Banana Splits, we shot at Six Flags in the park. I love being in Texas. I love meeting all of you, and that's why I came. I'm in Texas.
Here to see Sid Krofft, to get my original mail-away signed by him, and to find out what was the situation on it.
That's the treasure of all time. It really is.
Why was it produced? But yeah, super excited.
This is an Australian box set of 4 of the shows: HR Pufnstuf and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Land of the Lost, and Electra Woman and Dinah Girl are in this one.
I grew up watching the Sid and Marty Krofft shows all the time. Pufnstuf, I mean, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, and just loved it.
I really liked the Sigmund the Sea Monster myself. I was a big fan of it. And it's probably because Johnny Whitaker was my age. And I was like, man, I'd love to find a sea monster like that, you know, and just the cool stuff they did.
My dad is old enough to have grown up in the 70s, and he loved those shows when he was a kid, and so when I was like, 6, 7, 8 years old, he started introducing me to them, and I absolutely loved them, and Sigmund and Land of the Lost were probably my 2 favorites. You've got Sigmund where they're sea monsters, but they're living a domestic life, and it's kind of got those parallel stories going on. I always used to get a kick out of that. And Land of the Lost, again, they're trying to make a mundane life for themselves in this very strange, imaginative environment. And I think the combination of those 2 elements was what really pulled me in.
I like the Bugaloos. I was a big fan of the Bugaloos because I'm into music. And the Bugaloos flying around with their instruments and all that was a big thing with me.
Land of the Lost is probably one of my favorite ones, and I love that show. I do not remember the lyrics, but I would always hum to it when I watched the show. And anything with dinosaurs.
Activate emergency liftoff procedure.
Wait a minute. Where's the doors? We can't leave without the doors.
Doors. A horse and a dog.
Oh, there he is.
They had imagination that nobody else had.
What are you singing tonight, Judy?
Oh, it is a very romantic song she is singing, Dean.
Yeah.
It is a girl looking at her lover and saying, oh, je t'adore, mon chéri, parce que pas tout là pour toi, cher ce côté.
The network approached us and said, you guys are totally out of your mind. Come up with an idea and we'll buy it for your own show. Because the Banana Splits was Hanna-Barbera. We just only created those characters and built them.
Come and play with me, Jimmy, come and play with me.
It was 23 minutes long. That's a half-hour show. All the rest are commercials. And I had quite a story to tell. And how do I do that? So you get to know the characters immediately. We did a theme song. It was a minute, and it told the whole story, how the kid got there, and the witchy poo, and all the characters, you know, and it became a classic. After we shot each show, the Beatles were the first that wanted to see every episode because they were on tour, locked up in their hotel rooms. And every time a show came off the press, we sent the Beatles a copy, and they became huge, huge fans.
This is my pal, Freddie. He's the only talking flute in the world. Please, Jimmy, squeeze the water out of me, I'll get rusty.
We were so successful with Jack Wilde, who was nominated for an Academy Award in the movie Oliver. He's an English kid, a Cockney kid, and little girls went head over heels over him and fell in love with him. So we decided to go to England and cast the Bugaloos.
The Bugaloos?
There were 4,000 kids that showed up to the auditions. You know, we would all sit in the sound booth and they would audition out on that sound stage. And so they didn't see us. I didn't want to make them nervous or anything like that. But on the final day, Mick Jagger came and picked the finals. So when you see the Bugaloos, that was Mick Jagger that picked the finals for us. How about that?
Just listen to them. Oh, I've got to have them for my very own. I must.
When I approached Martha Ray to be in the Bugaloos, she said, I'm a huge star. You want me to do a little kiddie show? A children's show? That means that I'm over with, you know? But I talked them into it. Charles Nelson Riley, same thing. He hated to come to work even.
You never want to see your face in Lidsville again.
And guess what? After that, every time you saw him on Johnny Carson or any of those shows, he was doing that character.
They're all lying. They're up to no good.
He became Hoodoo.
I just love happy endings.
We talked them into it. You know, Richard Pryor didn't want to do a special because, and especially for kids, it was a series. And for kids, because he was dirty, but he needed a new image. You know, I hit him with that, and that's what made him do it. He was very difficult to work with because he wasn't used to, you know, doing television, because you have to knock those shows out, maybe 2 a day, because that's all you could afford. We only got $54,000 an episode to do those kid shows. Go watch it, because today that would be $6 or $7 million. Same show. I thank you so much. I thank you, Texas. I'm so happy that you are listening to my stories, and there's so many stories. You just tune in on my Instagram every Sunday, and I go live, and you got to tune in at 3 o'clock Pacific, and I have huge stars on. Oh, you've got to watch it. I've got so many stories to tell you. Can you believe it that I'm sitting here telling you this? Because I'm 93 years old and I don't feel it. I feel great. So don't worry about the age. It's just a number.